so that we can talk about it more. Talk about it until the government start to take our public schools infrastructure seriously. Some public schools don't even have sports fields anymore. The learners who are sport inclined can't cultivate their gifts because there's no infrastructure, there's no labs, there's no computer labs, there's no chemical labs, there's nothing. It's just a school with classrooms. It's just a school with classrooms. So even if learners do have some gifts that are God given to them, they can't even let those gifts shine because there's nothing to cultivate those gifts. When they get to university, it's then now they start cultivating those gifts. But they find it to be very hard because they are now adults and they are starting to cultivate those gifts. Imagine if they started cultivating those gifts from grade 1. In today's video, I want us to talk about something that is very serious, but to my surprise, it's something that is not spoken of nearly as much as it should be, because this is something that affects many of us as young people and actually decide, in most cases, the types of futures that we are going to have. And what I'm talking about is our public schooling systems and why public schools always fail to produce varsity-ready learners who can cope with the pressures of higher institution learning. I mean, if you look at the statistics, mostly it's learners from public schools who always drop out at university or higher education institutions. It's mostly learners from public schools. You will rarely find a learner from a Model C school dropping out of varsity because they can manage the stress of higher education learning. But when it comes to learners like us who came from public schools going into university, most of us drop out. Why is it? Let us talk about this, try to unpack it and find out exactly what is the problem and try to come up with a solution on how we can counteract this thing, because we can't afford to have black learners always dropping out of higher institutions because they can't cope with the pressure. In order to understand the reason behind this thing, we must first have to realize where we come from, our public schools. People, our public schools, many of them are not in the right conditions to produce learners who are varsity ready. And that is because of the lack of infrastructure. Our public schools barely have any infrastructure to assist learners in developing their talents, in developing their gifts, in developing their intellects further. If you can take a look at Model C schools or private schools, there's all types of infrastructure that you can need. If a learner, for example, is IT inclined, making an example, let's say a learner is IT inclined. If that learner is in a private school, most likely he will start using computers from a very young age, maybe from grade 1 all the way up until matric. That learner has been using technology devices, has been using laptops. He knows how to operate Windows, how to operate all the operating systems. He knows the basics of how a computer works. He knows how to open Word and write a document. He knows how to open Excel and do a spreadsheet. He knows all of those things while still maybe in high school. And then you find a learner who is also IT inclined, but that learner is in public schools. That learner, even though his mind is IT inclined, he won't be able to perform like that learner in the Model C school because there's no infrastructure to help that learner cultivate the gift that he has. So even if the learner is IT inclined, he won't be able to perform like that learner from the Model C when they get to varsity. If you want to prove what I'm saying is true, look at first-year students at university. The difference between those who come from public schools and those who come from private schools. Those who come from public schools know how to operate computers and things like that. And then you find some learners who come from public schools, it's their first time being in front of a computer. They've never used a computer in their whole lives. But when they get to varsity, the lecturers and the varsity at large expect every learner there to know how to operate a computer. They will just tell you, Woody, okay, do this thing on the computer, log into this portal, do this kind of thing. And then those learners from public schools who know nothing about computers struggle to do those things. And then they become what? A laughing stock. And then after they become a laughing stock, their confidence declines. They start seeing the learners from public schools as if they are better than them, as if they know more than them. And you'll find out that those from public schools are smarter than these ones from private schools. But just because the gifts of these ones in public schools were not cultivated from a young age, it's as if now when they get to varsity, these ones are smarter than these ones. But the reason is that these ones started using computers from a very young age. They know everything about computers. But this one, even though he is IT inclined, it's his first time trying to use a computer. So that learner struggles to do that thing. Tell me, will that learner perform better than this one who has been exposed to computers from a young age? No. You won't be able to perform. And then that thing leads the learner to what? To feel demotivated, as if he knows nothing. Some learners take some time to adapt to these pressures of higher institutions. They take some time to get in their elements so that they can perform at the level of these ones from private schools. Because these ones from private schools, the higher institution is not that different from where they come from. They come from schools with computer labs, with all the chemicals to do chemistry experiments. So when they get to university, it's not something new to them. They've been in institutions with infrastructure like this. But for those coming from public schools, it's their first time seeing things like that. It's their first time seeing real chemicals, but they were doing chemistry in school, but they've never seen a real chemical. They're first seeing a real chemical in varsity. So they take some time to adapt to that environment. Others fail to adapt, and then what? They end up dropping out. Those who adapt, in most cases, they adapt in the following year. Find out the learner didn't perform good on the first year because he was still trying to adapt. But it's as if that learner maybe is not at the level of these ones from private schools. Can't they know? Their intellects maybe are equal. It's just that this one needed some time to adapt. Well, it's not all of them. I'm not saying all learners from public schools always struggle in varsity, but majority. Yes, there are those chosen few who just are smart like that, who don't even struggle, even though the institution is very, very different from where they come from. There are those like that. But for many of the learners who always drop out, they drop out because they fail to adapt to this new environment. But the main point I'm trying to push in today's video is that our gifts, our children's gifts, if the public schooling system does not improve, will still get limited because of a lack of infrastructure. How? Let me tell you a really funny story. I remember when I was in grade 11, and in fact, not even grade 11 only, from grade 9 all the way up until matric, I was doing chemistry experiments without any chemicals. Just imagine doing chemistry experiments without chemicals. You must just imagine the chemicals. Okay, when ammonia mixed with this thing, it becomes. You must imagine it. You can't see it. And then you find those kids from private schools, they do those things practically. So when they get to varsity, it's things that they are used to. But us, when we get to varsity, because we were doing that thing with our imaginations, we struggle to adapt because we are slow. We are not used to these things. We don't even know how to properly prepare the equipment to perform an experiment. Then when you get to varsity, they just give you those things and say, prepare for the experiment. You don't even know where to begin. And then you look as if you don't know things. But it's just that you come from schools without infrastructure. So the point of today's video is just to bring awareness to this thing so that we can talk about it more. Talk about it until the government start to take our public schools infrastructure seriously. Some public schools don't even have sports fields anymore. The learners who are sport inclined can't cultivate their gifts because there's no infrastructure, there's no labs, there's no computer labs, there's no chemical labs, there's nothing. It's just a school with classrooms. It's just a school with classrooms. So even if learners do have some gifts that are God-given to them, they can't even let those gifts shine because there's nothing to cultivate those gifts. When they get to university, it's then now they start cultivating those gifts. But they find it to be very hard because they are now adults and they are starting to cultivate those gifts. Imagine if they started cultivating those gifts from grade 1. So I know Uguti, infrastructure is very expensive and it's going to take a long time before our government actually gets our public schools in the right conditions with the proper infrastructure. But as long as we are not talking about these things, our government won't do anything. And this thing makes me sad because if you can look, no one is talking about this thing. Years back, there were people who were talking about this thing, but lately, no one is talking about the public school infrastructure and how it is limiting the potential of learners. No one is talking about that thing. So I just made this video so that if you are watching me right now, if you are in the correct setting whereby you can bring this up, try to bring it up so that we can build this awareness until our governments start to improve our public schools, so that all the learners in public schools can be given a fair chance and able to perform at the highest level when they get to varsity. That's just what I wanted to talk about in today's video. So if you enjoyed this video or you learned something new, please leave a like and subscribe to this channel. I would really appreciate it. Tell me on the comment section down below, what do you think about this? Do you think maybe I'm reaching when I'm saying this, or do you agree with me? Tell me on the comment section down below. My name is Emmanuel and this is Mzansi Versity, the place where we transform lives through knowledge and information. Let's meet again on another video.